Good evening. This is another Wednesday, another Woman Wednesday. But because I never did my Tuesday video, let me start over. Hey, this is another video of the Above Average Black Man coming with my perspective on relationships, dating, social interactions, and I won't say how to be a man, but my thoughts and philosophies of manhood and masculinity. This video, um, maybe controversial, maybe not, depending on who's watching and how mentally disturbed they are. But my video is on preferences and everyone's views on them. Basically, I actually have a title for today's video, and that is, and I quote, preferences are okay until you have to prove them. So, let's start the video off with the definition of preference. A greater liking for one alternative over another or others. Or no, that's the legal one. A legal definition is a prior right or precedence, especially in connection with payment of debts. Just throw the legal term in. But anyway, but preference is basically liking something over the other. And I think the quagmire of it is that people want to control other people's preferences and have no substantial, and I do mean this, no substantial reason as to why, other than the fact that, okay, other than the fact that I like you, but because you want something different that I may or may not have, I want to control what you like. And that's fucked up. That is very, very fucked up, messed up, but it's the truth. And I've seen this in media, I've seen this in my daily life. And keep for it seen. Like I observed this happening. I had conversations with my friends and other people talking around, you know, and sometimes it is like that. You can literally be in a relationship, and let's say your significant other wants to eat tacos on a Wednesday, but you have a routine of eating your tacos on a Thursday, and you don't feel like eating tacos on a Wednesday. You maybe just want to go and eat Italian because you prefer one over other in a preferable time and place. That can cause conflict. Why? Because the other person wants you to feel like they do or like what they like. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in relationship in modern dating today, from what I've been seeing on the internet, is that everybody does not want to, what's the right word? What's the right word? Tolerate other people's preferences. They really don't. So now we have to go into justification on why this, that, and the third has to be the way it is. Why can't it be shaken up? Why can't it be this or why can't it be that? Why was like why even questioning other people's preferences and then questioning them on why they're questioning you? It gets to such a murky quagmire is that it stops being about coming to a compromise and just keep coming into conflict because one person does not want to give while the other person does not want to give at all, give as well. And so we definitely need to have a real conversation about this. For the men's point of view, if they say we want a chick who's young, doesn't necessarily mean childish or in their teens. Who's fit doesn't necessarily mean skinny. Who doesn't have any children, or or I I I don't want to say this because I don't have a problem with it and I feel weird saying it, but either doesn't is not all in, I would say not all into their career. I would say that not all into their career or education. And most females have a problem with that. While women would say, I need a man who makes X amount of money, X times amount of money, has to be a certain height, has to, one, either not have kids, maybe have one kid, but definitely no kids, and is completely and utterly loyal. Oh, and very good looking and charismatic. But there's no middle ground. It's either all or nothing or nothing. When it's actually just all to a certain degree and something. And for men, it's just something. And when we get based on that, we want to have something that we find aesthetically pleasing, that is kind and generous, and that ultimately respect us and what we're bringing to a relationship. And yes, that does go into admiration. And for women, it's the same thing. They want safety, security, and there's always a third something, but I can never remember it. But it's safety, security, and shelter. There we go. Safety, security, and shelter. Can you shelter me? Can you provide for me? And can you keep me from danger? That's it. But also with those things come requirements in a relationship. And all these discussions that I'm hearing is a lot of self-centeredness coming from one end, and a lot of aggression and absurdity coming from another. When a man prefaces that he wants a woman who's fit, who is feminine, and who is friendly, that doesn't necessarily mean he wants a doormat. And trying to prove that to somebody who would hear those words, feel attacked, they're automatically going to get defensive, and they don't want to hear what they actually mean. And sometimes when I'm hearing these conversations, the definition is not only vague, it's very, very muddy. Like they're just grasping at anything. And that is a problem. When you cannot clearly define what you're talking about, you leave room for interpretation. And that is the worst thing to do. You don't want to give anybody room to interpret what your actual meaning is. Especially if you're a man, you have to be clear, firm, and concise in what you're saying and what you're trying to communicate, especially to the opposite sex. Because the opposite sex will take anything that you say and flip it around to something that never came up, never part of the conversation, or wasn't even a thought or afterthought. Clear, concise communication alleviates a lot of trouble. And you just gotta stand on what you mean. You just gotta stand on what you said. Even if it sounds ridiculous, like, yeah, I know I said something ridiculous. Just give me a moment. You know, even if what you said, even as a man, what you said is not really what you mean. Take steps like, hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. I know what I said sounded stupid. Let me get back. This is what I actually mean. And go back. Will she flip it? Yeah. But you took accountability, so she can't beat you over the head with it, calling you out on something that you already took accountability on. They can't do it. You have to be clear on what you want in and out of a relationship. And most of the men I know, they're men are simple. Our needs may feel complicated because we don't communicate our emotions a whole bunch, but maybe in intimate circles with other brothers, please don't misuse the word intimate. Close friend groups, okay? Perverts. About what we really need out of a relationship, out of our significant other. And if we communicate that clearly to y'all, there shouldn't be a problem. But this is where the other factor goes in. The female factor. Y'all have been saying across the internet that you want financial security, shelter, safety and security. But those come with requirements. Provide, provision, and protection. It's like provide, production, protection, problem solving comes with a bit of authority. It does. I do get the last say if I'm providing everything from you. I do get to tell you what to and what not to wear. I do have the final say if you want me to solve your problems. It just comes with the territory. And yes, I do have access to your body, unless it's a medical or mental situation. Then I'll stay myself and make sure you still feel safe. I have to make you feel protected before we can start doing procreation. That's what I mean by producing procreation. I do feel like that if I want to be on my woman and I love my woman, I want to show my affection to my woman, I should be able to put my hands on you. But if I'm constantly being rejected, then what are you giving me? How are you showing me, just by being there? That doesn't make sense. How are you respecting my authority if you want to go out dressing any kind of way that's going to draw unwanted attention and then come back and expect me to solve your problems that you caused? How are you going to ask for me to provide for you when you have poor spending habits and you're constantly spending money unnecessarily? It does it does not make sense in the mind of an actual man. And at some point, he's going to have to put his foot down and tell you, hey, this is not going to go. But that becomes a problem nowadays. And it's not like we're trying to control your life, but we're trying to mitigate risk. And on the line of preference, to take a side note, when it comes to the factor of race, it should be easier to explain, and I'm just talking about black folks right now, why we choose who we choose. But when you get into a debate and then you want to bring in history and litigation and all that other stuff, then we're not talking about relationships anymore. We're talking about society and politics, just to justify who has the moral right to date interracially, because that's what ends up happening. One of the things that I've heard most of the times is that one, black men date out more than any other race of men, which is a lie. If you want to bring in history, that you already know that is an upfront lie. And number two, black women are the most loyal. Again, that is also a lie. If you know history, that is also a lie. But another thing that is the biggest lie is that when it comes to interracial dating, it is different when a black woman marries a white man than a black man marries a white woman. That is the biggest load of fodder ever. I personally don't care who you date. I find other races of women attractive along with black women. I have a certain body type. That's me. Okay? But to say it's different without actual substantial reasoning, not facts, reasoning, okay, then it all just falls flat. Most of what you're saying is just circumstantial and pretty much not exceptionalism, but extra. This is what happens when you got too many words in your head. Yeah, exceptionalism. That's the exception. That's it. It's just circumstantial and exceptionalism. That it does not equate to the whole. And getting into those arguments, it really bothers me. But what's upset me the most is when we find those of our racial demographic saying harsh things about their racial demographic to then double down on their racial preference. That's where I really get pissed off. I don't care if it's both black man and black woman. I really get tired of that. I will never say, because I spend most of my time with black women and I've had some bad interactions with women, but I had more good interactions with black women, to say that black women won't serve or won't do the same things. No, I will never say that. I will say is different for some people if their environment by which their interactions with black women or black men wasn't conducive to a very pleasant engagement. If the communication was harsh, if the environment was harsh, the communications and the social aspect becomes very harsh as well. So it really perturbs me. Um, just as the recent event with the Tolliver situation and all his recent tweets come up and everything. And I'd be quite honest, if that man did not die or get murdered the way he was murdered, his tweets would never be a factor at all. He would have been in his own little white world, minding his own black white business. If he never died and never saw his tweets, he would have been not even a blip on the radar. But that goes into what I'm saying when it comes to racial preferences and everything, the justification for them. I'm not a Dr. Umar. So let me get that out of the way. I'm not a Dr. Umar. The justification becomes very, very, again, muddy and murky. Because you're trying to find reason to justify why you specifically, and just saying, I like them better than y'all. I like white people better than I find white people more attractive than black people. You don't want to say that, so you throw yourself at a freaking roller coaster of bullshit to justify why you did it. And it just all ends up being shitty because no one really wants to believe you. And that's just it. I'm not gonna call it self-hate. I'm not gonna do the whole cooning thing because this is not what this is about. This is about preferences and how hard it is to prove why you like what you like. That's it. Continuing on the main subject. Another part when it comes to preferences is contradictions. Now, contradiction is this a combination of statements, ideas, and features of a situation that are opposed to one another. When trying to define why we like who we like and what we like and all other stuff, we end up in the territory of contradictions. We either contradict ourselves by our words, which are the easiest, or by our actions. And most of the times, you can talk your way out of a situation if you're good enough, but our actions will always give us up in the end. So it's better to be truthful and clear about what you like, about who you are and what you like. If you have a preference for big booty women and there's a small booty woman who like you, don't leave that little chick on. Like, yeah, you got a little chick me, but I like real big booties. Listen, if you have a preference for tall men, just as I like them tall. Now you just get into the territory of what is your definition of tall. That's usually it. What is your definition of tall? That's the same thing as like, what is your definition of big booty? It's that simple. If you like big chested men, if you get a chick with an A cup, just be nice and say, yeah, you got a pretty face, but I like really big booby women. That's it. You know? If you're into short dudes, just say you're into short dudes. You can be a freaking not tree trunk. You can be a freaking tree tall woman, neck of a giraffe, and you like short dudes. Just be clear about it. Just be clear about it. It doesn't hurt to be clear about what you actually want. And throwing all this fluff about certain situations, it really hinders you, or it keeps you confined. It really does. But all in all, the one thing you can't really do and contradict yourself in is treatment and how you want to be treated. If all you're talking about is someone's physical aspects or material possessions, then you really hurt yourself when it comes down to the eternal aspects. And then you learn that later after everything you've been to in that relationship. Doesn't matter if you've been in a relationship for 4 weeks, 2 months, or a year. If you don't actually find the eternal aspects of that person, you're going to be in a very long and arduous relationship, and all your aesthetic preferences don't mean shit. That is the absolute truth. They won't mean shit. That also goes into another contradiction: loving someone to heal them. There are certain aspects, but usually the person has to be a willing participant in their own healing. If you're constantly giving of someone and they don't change, and you just keep pouring into them, expecting them to change, I'm not gonna lie, I have my moments. I have my moments that have happened to where I had to actually, were people who were doing for me, and I didn't want to do it until I actually got up and started doing it for myself. You know, and I always regretted wasting those people times, because sometimes I didn't ask. I was thankful, but I didn't ask. I didn't ask because what they were talking about didn't interest me. It didn't interest me, but I didn't want to seem rude. And the rudest thing you can do is waste people's time. If you're not clear about what you want, if you're clear about what you don't want, just let them know about that. Just start there. Like, that sounds good, but I'm not really feeling it. Like, I understand that it may can be good for my career. It may be able to do it, but if I'm not feeling it, then I'm wasting your time. There's probably somebody who will do something with that information, and I don't ever want to put people through that. I've done it before when I was younger, and I've always felt bad because I felt like I couldn't give back to those people who actually went out of their way to help me. And that goes in a relationship. It's not good for someone to let themselves be used by someone who is not ready to give or not ready to change. It's very hurtful, even if it's unintentional. And that is the worst, because you know that what that person is doing, and you're allowing them to do it because, well, I didn't ask them. So why should I tell them? Because it's for you. You have to be mature enough to tell them, hey, please don't waste your time on me. I'm not in the right mindset to actually accept this properly. And I don't want you wasting your time on me. And if they still doing it after you tell them, just be grateful. Just be grateful. And just keep letting them know that they didn't have to do it, but also reciprocate in some manner. Because if they're still willing to do this, the least you can do is show a little appreciation and reciprocation. And you never know. It could start you on your own healing journey by starting with that. Someone who's willingly who's giving of themselves, who's being kind to you. But I'm telling people who are like that, you can't love a person to love themselves. You can't. And you have to recognize that until they're ready to be like, I need help. Once they say the words, I need help, then all you need, and then all you're doing is helping them. Is You're not pulling them, you're not dragging them, you're not pushing them. They came to you for help. So one of the biggest contradictions is loving someone to heal or to help or to get them to like you. Okay? You can always be kind. You can always be generous. You can keep that. But to force that on somebody who's not ready to receive, that needs to stop. Next definition is conflation. When dealing with dealing with preferences, there's a lot of conflation going on. The definition of conflation is the merging of two or more sets of information, ideas into one. And that is bullshit. A lot of people will conflate their preferences with some kind of moral doctrine or whatnot, which is ridiculous. And a lot of people do it. Both male and female conflate a lot of bullshit. If a man's financially stable, then he knows how to and he knows how to take care of his business, then that's gonna be a really good man. If a woman is fit and feminine and knows how to treat a man, that's a really good woman. Just a thing, a word called manipulation. There's no correlation that any of these equals anything else. We can't conflate information that has never been quantified. Does having financial stability, having shelter, and looking a certain way increases your chances of finding a suitable mate? Yes. If you're a male, yes. Does being fit, family, and exuding femininity increase your chances of finding a suitable mate? Yes. But there's also problems with that. Are you emotionally mature, i.e., emotionally emotionally intelligent? With just maturity and situational awareness, can you complement another person's vibe? Can you? Are you able to be very compassionate? Can you communicate well? What is your moral standings? Just having what people want aesthetically and materialistically does not correlate to being a good person. And you hear these competitions within the same context of the first thing. Material and aesthetics will equal good partner. That doesn't work. That's not how any of this works. So we really got it, like I said, clear, concise communication. And we got to stop bullshitting one another. Because clearly, we don't know anything. I never asked my parents, and yes, my mother and father are still together. Well, technically. A bit of a backstory. I am the oldest of two families. My biological parents never married, but I have a stepdad and a stepmom, and they have for context, half brother and half sister, both a brother and a sister on both sides of the family. And they have very, very loving and working relationships. They're together right now. They've been together about as long as I've been old. So I'm 44 right now. So subtract 4 years. They've been together. My mom and my stepdad have been together for 38, not 38, 36 years. And my dad and my stepmom have been together because I was 6 when they got married. So for 34 years. Communication and mutual respect and admiration for one another. That's what works. That's what works. And my mom and both my moms travel all the time. My stepmom always travels to Charlotte to go help my sister out. And my mom's a preacher, so she's going everywhere. Both my fathers are disabled to a certain degree, so they don't travel as much. But trust me, my stepdad travels more than my biological dad because he's in a wheelchair. So, with that being said, though, they still have loving working relationships, and they're in their 60s because they communicate with one another. They have love and admiration for one another. They provide for one another. And yes, there have been times where there have been communication breakdowns. There have been arguments, but you know what they never did, which blew my mind when I got older. They had arguments, and they came to a reasonable solution. They found ways to complement one another. Effective communication. Leave it out on the table and then pick it up and reset the table. That's what they did. And it's been working for 34 to 36 years of my life. But in modern relationships, everybody wants to be a star to everyone else. Your relationship is your relationship. That truth about keep people out of your relationship because it's your relationship is true. But first of all, you got to find out if you're actually compatible to one another. Does your crazy match their crazy, or at least complement it? Can one person be grounded long enough to to uncrazy the other person long enough to come to a compatible agreement? Are we doing that? No. Why? Because we're too busy conflating. We're too busy contradicting ourselves, and we're too busy trying to defend our preferences because we clearly don't know what we prefer. We're just agreeing with the masses of what everyone else thinks is agreeable. And this one is especially for the ladies. This was talked about from another YouTuber named well, his channel is called MHD, Manifest Highlights Daily. But he brought the term up, solipsism. SOLIPSISism. It's ISISM. I know I said ism. Which means the quality of being very self-centered or selfish. Philosophy. Gotta love Google. The view or theory that the self is all that can be known to exist. This is I think the main hard part when having these discussions with the opposite sex is that the opposite sex thinks it's all about them and what they can present to the world. It really, really is. I'm gonna tell you another little inner secret. I like watching couples channels, especially couples channels that are actually healthy. There are some couples channels that are just completely off the wall, like just off the wall bonkers crazy. And I am so glad I have not found any of them. There's a documentary around on Hulu about a woman who wanted to be the perfect mom and just tortured kids. She's in jail right now. I'm glad I never found that channel. I am absolutely glad. Another toxic family channel? Well, just call it a series. Keep It Up with the Kardashians. That was toxic as fuck, and I never liked it. Another one that's not really a family channel, but it deals with people and families. The Real Housewives. I can't stand that series. I don't care from what city they are in, what state. I don't care. These are people, or Married to Medicine. I'm not sure if that's still going. I don't care. They give a false reality of what actual family life and community is. And it's horrible. And yet it gets millions and millions of views. By who? By females. They watch that shit and eat it up like candy. And it's rotting their teeth. Technically their brains. Can't stand it. I mean, to be quite honest, y'all get mad at dudes watching wrestling. We know that's fake. We know what they're doing is not fake. But we know that's fake. We know that these are very athletic people who are putting on a show. Of course, it's intentional brain rot. But we know this. Y'all take the Real Housewives as true to fact of that's how you live and that's how people act. No. That's how people act when they're getting paid and they're given a lot of money. The same thing with 90 Day Fiancé. Y'all believe that shit is real. It is not. It is not at all. But they ramp up the drama to get your attention, and it is sad and annoying and frustrating that some of y'all will take that as fact. A lot of females have main character syndrome. And then there are a lot of females who have side character syndrome because they're around people who believe they're the main character. And when you're dealing with that kind of mental dynamic as a man, you will never win. You will never win. Because I'm not going against you or talking to you. I'm talking to the main character that you present in your head. So having these kind of conversations, I'm fully understanding that your self-centeredness is due to what you're presenting to the world. Now, before you say it, yes, everybody wears a mask because they want to put their best face forward in the greater society. Everybody does it. Man, woman, dog, doesn't matter. We all wear a public mask because we either don't want the world to know, unless you got a phone, and you're just crying over it. Like, who sets up a phone? Never mind, going off subject. unless you got a going off subject. Everybody wears a mask because if I don't have an intimate relationship with you, I don't care about your problems. If I'm going to any coffee shop and I order a coffee, I don't want to hear your story because that's not what I'm here for. But if I see that you're in distress and I'm asking, like, hey, are you okay? The only reason I'm asking is because if you are detaining or delaying my beverage that I'm asking you to do, maybe you should take a moment and someone can replace you so I can get my beverage that I'm trying to order. Your safety, your health in that moment of time is concerning me because you're delaying me from what I want to attain. That's the only reason, but any other reason, I'm not going to care. Any other reason is just small talk. And most people hate small talk. But a lot of women in these conversations, in these podcasts, they want to talk about the men in their podcasts and take away their mics. Some of y'all, we should take away your phones. We should bring back the Nokia brick. Take off the camera. Let's just deal with Snake. All you can do is text. And it'll take you longer to text because you got to press every button multiple times to get that right letter. Like some of y'all need to go back to Nokia brick. Because you talk about taking about podcast, man. So get rid of the iPhones and the Androids. Give you Nokia brick. Let's go back to that. Because a lot of y'all just be talking out the sides of your necks. And I don't think you guys really understand how unhinged some of your stuff sound. That's like ruling main character syndrome right there. Some of the advice that is given is horrible. It doesn't make a lick of sense. On the male side, most of the stuff is easily debunkable because they're just put on a facade. We know that. But some of y'all on the female side really believe that what you're saying is fact. And that is sad. And that will lead to a lot of breakdown in communication because men of any note get tired. They get tired. If you act like a know-it-all and you don't think you can be taught, then guess what? We're going to stop trying. If we're trying to show you something, but you think you can do it yourself, we're going to stop trying. If you expect us to help you, and then when we try to help you, and then you're telling us we're being some kind of toxicity, aggressive behavior, cringy, whatever, we're going to not deal with it. And that is a problem. Solipsism is a problem pejoratively in the female species. And my theory with that is that a lot of that deals with insecurity. A lot of that deals with insecurity because I do believe that that is a instinctual function that's been cranked up way too high in the modern era, in the modern day. There's no problem have self-assurity and have a positive self-image. But when it comes to conversations that we can come to like any kind of compromise, it is just ridiculous. And I think men are just taking a step back if we can't have clear communication. Men need to be real clear on what they actually want out of a relationship before they get into a relationship and be ready for a relationship. That does include finances, that does include transportation, that does include shelter, but that also includes self-assurity, a sense of morality, a deep emotional maturity, and a deep spiritual maturity. I tell most of the times in this video and others that I'm working on mine. Day to day, I'm doing something to improve myself. It's baby steps. I'm in my 40s right now. This is my 40th year of living. I'm in my 40s, so it's harder for me. But any man that's worth the salt or want to be worth the salt needs to work on those things. I am not a female. I cannot tell you guys how to be feminine. Not even going to. But just like you can tell what you want out of a man, we can agree to disagree. I can only tell you what I'm looking for out of a woman, and we can agree to disagree. When trying to explain our preferences for what we see, for what we want out of a partner, we really need to get rid of a lot of ego. That's what all this is. The contradictions, the conflation, the solipsism. That's ego. That's ego, and get down to brass tacks before we communicate this to anybody. The truth is, having preferences isn't bad, but being toxic with our preferences is bad. Trying to prove our preferences is bad. Because why do I need to prove something of what I like if you're not going to like it? It's okay if you don't like it. We can compromise and find a good in between. I can just do that over here when you're not around or when you're doing your own thing. I don't have to keep proving or providing evidence on why you should like it or why I should like it. And that's just it. But this video is getting too long. I thank you for showing up. Drop a like, subscribe, and there'll be more in the future. Have a good day.